Stun locked from nearly full health to instant death by a Neurothrope. Absolutely no chance to escape. This should not be in the game. They need to adjust how many of the ground AoEs can spawn. Having 5 of them overlap in an area and timing to guarantee stun lock and death is one of the most obnoxious things in the game. So this is interesting. I think this person is pointing out that they are getting stun locked by basically area of effect damage that is practically unavoidable. Now we will show why it's unavoidable, but I think getting stun locked is a very interesting conversation recently, because I think there's moments where it's like there's moments where you're getting stun locked and it's kind of warranted because you get hit by like a warrior sword or something. But then there are moments where you practically can't avoid being stun locked because you were basically either you were executing something. You can get stun locked like out of rolling. Like if you're rolling by something, you can get stun locked as you are finishing your roll. So there's moments where you're like basically, you're basically caught in an animation and a stun lock is practically queued up. is practically queued up for you. So I just wanted to revisit this conversation a bit. I wanted to show this clip because this clip is very frustrating to watch, and I just want to see if you guys have anything to say about this and exactly if there's any sort of solution. There's also a really in detail discussion on the true nature of executions. So first, let's go into the clip. All right, this is a Neurothrope. I'm not too sure what difficulty this is on, but yeah, they go for the execution there and then get absolutely bombarded by area of effect spam right there. They had no shot. They had no shot to survive this moment. This is rough because like you can't even. I think the attacks were queued as he was going for. Yeah, as he goes for the execution there, you see the unblockable bar here. So this was something that I feel like this is bad luck, 100%. He goes for the execution here. He goes for the execution, and then there's nothing he can do here. There's nothing he can do. And he gets hit by... There's 1, 2, 3. There are 3 different area of effect circles right there, and he instantly goes down. Yeah, this is frustrating. I gotta admit, this is 100% frustrating. I'm not too sure how to avoid this. Like, as far as a solution, I'm not too sure what to really say about this. Maybe outside of an execution, maybe you need a couple more iframes or something. I really don't know. I really don't know. Even going for this execution, some people in the comments thought he was execution stealing here, but I disagree. I don't think he was. See, even you can see the 2 teammates right there. Like, they take down this major. They were all focused on this major. I think he's just trying to pick off the, get the execution here so he can get his armor back, but it ends up trading his entire health bar. So no matter who gets this execution, they are getting hit by this Neurothrope. Also, I gotta point out, I feel like the Neurothrope maybe needed some aggro here. There wasn't any teammates attacking the Neurothrope. They all focused on the major. So this could be a team synergy type of mistake. However, it's really hard to, blame that when you see this. Like, obviously someone should have aggroed the Neurothrope, but that doesn't mean this guy should be one-shotted from full health just because, yeah, he went into the execution. Like, dude, even if you go for the camo there, you can't because he's stunned. He's literally stun locked. He can't camo to heal himself because even if he inputs it, it's not going to happen. Like, yeah, see, right here's where you would input it, but you still get absolutely eviscerated. Dude, that's rough. That's rough. I'm not too sure how to solve something like this. I do think the Neurothrope needed some aggro. And also, I just want to point out that this is another good reason for Bonds of Brotherhood. However, they do have a Bulwark on the team, so it's possible they can get healing. But yeah, just don't... Look, I will say, that as BS as this is, the going down in a operation really isn't that big of a deal. Someone can just pick you up. You can heal your mortal wound if your team is good at that. This is why we have rezzing, because of moments like this. Dude, yeah, that's rough. We definitely might need some sort of iframe support for executions. But yeah, that's rough. Just don't feel too bad about getting killed like this. If this happens to you, it's not because you're bad. It's because sometimes this game throws stuff at you that is practically unwinnable. And that's where the rush comes. That's where I think that's where the satisfying part of the gameplay loop basically starts to show itself, is where, I mean, you know, executions are very satisfying, landing headshots are very satisfying, but nothing beats the feeling of getting through a situation that felt unbeatable at one point, you know? That's where I really enjoy the game. But yeah, shout out to this teammate to getting this res, very necessary res to a very unnecessary stun lock. There should be more iframes upon exiting an execution because of this. If you are in the middle of one, then an AoE appears out of nowhere, centered on you, you're trapped. Yeah, either that or, yeah, some sort of stun lock support. Like, honestly, we've already received a nerf to stun locks. When you get knocked back, you basically have an iframe and you can't get any more damage stacking, you know, stacked on you as you're getting, you know, basically knocked back onto the floor, practically. So yeah, you can, in that moment, you had no way to defend yourself. And I feel like, yeah, stun locks definitely can be an issue in this game, for sure. But underneath this comment, there's a pretty interesting conversation I kind of wanted to highlight. This is a problem with lots of forms of attacks. Beam attacks, charges, sniper shots, regular melee, all have the potential to nail you as you come out of an execution. That's what makes the decision to execute a risk/reward assessment. You might get that armor back, or you might just be setting your enemies up for a perfect shot on you. It's up to you to assess the battlefield and determine if the risk is worth it. OP chose badly and went down for it. If he hadn't gone for that execution, he wouldn't have died. Frustrating, sure, but this isn't a game mechanic issue. You are not guaranteed to pull off an execution and to get away from all the potential risk in the area that you chose to charge into. I think this is a rough comment. I think that they have a point about, you know, really analyzing the battlefield and trying to understand what the best form of action is. And yes, that player could just shoot the major out of executionable and they would have been fine. They were going for one armor piece, which is also fine. But I gotta admit, the execute is a risk-reward assessment. I think it's really not supposed to be that way. I don't think it's supposed to be a risk. Because if it was, then we wouldn't have iframes for them, you know what I mean? I just think this is something that's overlooked in the game when it comes to these sweaty situations. There are definitely some damage stacking that can get pretty insane, like an unblockable extremist attack being followed by like spore mines or something, you know what I mean? There's just a lot of stuff in this game that can stack on each other and make situations just so much worse to deal with. That said, I don't want the game to be easy. I do like the idea that we have to analyze the battlefield and understand what the best course of action is. I do like that about the game. I like the game how it's simple, but when it comes to high difficulties and these unwinnable situations, it's definitely not very simple. You definitely have to think about what you're doing quite a bit. And I like those quick thinking situations in this game. And sometimes I don't think quick enough and I get hit. Like, I've been in that situation before. So I understand the sentiment of assessing the battlefield, but I don't really follow the risk reward assessment for the risk reward part of the execution, or the risk reward part of this comment. I think executions aren't supposed to be risk reward. I think they're just strictly reward. And there is some pushback under this comment, but I still gotta say, I do think this is an interesting comment. This is definitely an interesting comment about this stunlock situation and how we see the battlefield and how certain situations can definitely backfire pretty hard. This is just not true. It's not a risk reward and is not meant to be risk reward. Executions are how you sustain in fights, plain and simple. If you're playing on high difficulty and a wave of 3 Raveners are on you, you can't just not execute because it's a risk. Like, it's a core mechanic of the game that's just poorly done and not completely thought out. This is the weirdest part about these comments for this discussion. Like, I agree with some of what they're saying, but I don't think it's a poorly done mechanic. I really don't. I just think, we're getting to the point of this game where there's a lot of trial and error when it comes to, the higher difficulties. So, yes, stuff like this is going to happen because there's just a lot the game is throwing at us, and we're handling a lot of the stuff the game is throwing at us. And even in that situation, the sniper was rezzed, so they do have a chance to come back and complete that operation. But But yeah, I do think this person has a point about, obviously, the risk-reward of executions. I don't think they were supposed to be a risk-reward situation. They're just strictly reward. Of course, it's risk-reward. The reward is regaining armor, contested health. The risk is that it might not be safe to get to or leave the execution. Well, to get to the execution, you can get iframes. But yeah, if you just push through a group of mobs, that could definitely be a situation. For example, if a Majorist went red right next to a Carnifex and I was close by with full health, and 2.5 out of the 3 armor bars, I'm just going to shoot the Majors to death because the 0.5 extra armor reward isn't worth possibly getting smacked by the Carnifex after the execution iframes are done. Also, I think this depends on what melee weapon you are using, you know? Because, yeah, you could possibly just get out of the execution and just throw a quick parry. I mean, you could just throw a quick block as well. Block is pretty fast. On the other hand, if a Majorist went red next to a Carnifex and I had no armor, 90% of my health was contested from a nasty hit I just took, I'm much more likely to go for the execution because getting all my health and bar of armor back reward outweighs possibly getting a smack from the Carnifex. Yeah, this dude makes a really good point. I fundamentally disagree with how the risk-reward label is on the execution, but the way this person detailed out the situation, they do have a point. They do have a point. But I feel like this is less about executions and more about just the way the game basically can start to stack on these dangerous situations. It's basically just more of a, you know, more of a nice PSA onto think about what you are doing in higher difficulties. Because there's a lot of players who don't, but, you know, it is what it is. That's not really any question that the mechanic is risk-reward. There's not really any question that the man. Oh, okay. He's saying there's no question that the executions is a risk-reward situation. Okay, I mean, look, the reason why I don't think it's a risk-reward situation because most of going for an execution is reward. You get iframes when you run up to them to get the executions. You get iframes during the executions. You get your contested health back, and you get armor back. If the drawback is when you are leaving the execution, you can get hit. I don't know. I think 9 times out of 10, I'm going for the execution. I still think they have a point here. I disagree, but I think they have a point. Anyone who has played for even a few hours knows this, and we literally have video proof of the risk-reward system at work in the video above. I think, yeah, I do agree with that. I still think they could have played that just a tad bit better by aggroing the Neurothrope or even the Sniper. If they wanted to, they could just shoot the, you know, they could just shoot the executionable's target. But I don't think the Sniper saw the Neurothrope attack coming. So I don't think there was any room for them to make a decision. Basically, what they're pointing out here is a decision you have to make for risk and reward. Are you going to get hit by the Carnifex after the execution? Well, that's the risk. In this situation, it was, I'm going for the execution, and there's nothing stopping me besides a Neurothrope who's just floating around. Oh, the Neurothrope just threw a one-shot attack at me that I did not see coming. Like, that's not really risk-reward. That's more about the stun lock, I feel like. As for the question of did the devs intend it to be risk-reward, or the risk portion is poorly done and not completely thought out, well, I kind of doubt the devs intended to make a game where it's always 100% safe to rush wherever you want to get, whenever you want to get armor or health back and are able to get back to safety with 0 risks. All right, yeah, this guy's kind of convincing me. You guys definitely need to let me know in the comments how you feel about this conversation, because I felt like this was a great conversation about risk and reward and, you know, going for executions and how you should assess the battlefield. There's a lot of good discussion here. That'd be a really boring and easy game since every execution would need to have a lot of invulnerability tacked on to both ends. I mean, yeah, I gotta admit, I think they have a good point here. I still think they're just a little harsh on the clip above, you know, because like still, I don't think the snipers saw the Neurothrope throwing that attack at them. I like literally when he went in for the execution, then the Neurothrope decided to attack. So I don't know. Normally those area of effect bubbles, I don't think they stack up like that. They could have been. I thought they were more spread out. But yeah, it felt like the Neurothrope just spammed like 3 or 4 at them in one spot, and yeah, that was definitely rough. Also, to avoid a back and forth on Reddit, I hear you. I like what you're saying. It makes total sense. It certainly is risk-reward as it stands. My point is that was not the intention. And when the risk is getting one-tapped, I think it's pretty clear that's not the intention. That being said, agree to disagree. All right, yeah, you guys are gonna help me out. You guys gotta help me out with this conversation in the comments. Do you think the devs intended for one-tapping risk-reward situations? Are stun locks still way too oppressive? And do the stun locks actually, like, even if this risk-reward conversation had merit to how they wanted to build the game, which it does. But my point is, even if it did they also make it the intention to get absolutely stun locked to death if you make a bad call on what the reward is, or if you make a bad call on the risk, you know? So yeah, either way, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. This was definitely a good conversation to have. That clip is horrifying, and I really wish I don't run into that situation. So yeah, keep an eye out for neurothropes, be careful of your executions, and be careful of stun locks. Play the game well, assess the battlefield, make good decisions, and yeah, hopefully you don't get stun locked to death.